sometimes asleep and sweet, and sometimes awake and not so sleep. But there's nothing quite like a child. And when I think about everything that matters, there's what I see, no greater responsibility in the world than molding a child. I've always felt that way. I've been employed in, I suppose, what was considered to be important work, but I never thought that my work was comparable to BR's, because she was doing something that I really wasn't fit to do. She was molding two of the most important people in the world to me. And for me, her job was the most important job in the whole world. And someone says, well, yeah, but it's only two people. Well, that may be true, but they were my people. And that's what mattered most to me. When I talk about mothers, I talk about people I love very much. That's something I've gleaned from my love for my own mother. She was far from perfect, very far. And if I was trying to sell her as a saint, I believe she'd come back and haunt me. She had her ups and downs. She had her problems. I guess there was people that liked her and people who didn't. She was just a person. But she was my mama. And I loved her more than I love her. There's nothing quite like a mother. And I want to deal a little bit with the responsibilities of mama today. We challenged by many in our world today. As the Bible said and read just a few moments ago, Psalm 127, verse 3 and 4, behold, children are a heritage from the Lord. The fruit of the womb is a reward. Like arrows in the hand of a warrior, so are the children of one's youth. The arrows are the children, like an arrow. And the warrior in this case today is the mother. Theologically, it's mother and father. But today we're talking about mother. Like an arrow in the hand of a mother, so are the children born to her in her youth. That gives us a lot to think about. In our minds, we can draw a picture of an archer. An archer is a person who learns through practice. An archer is a person who has a goal or an aim for their arrow. Their intention is to hit that target. That's what the archer does. Unless the archer hits the target, they failed. And unless the mother hits the target, she has likewise missed the mark. And that's something she doesn't want to do. Because the child is the most important thing she has. And it's her responsibility to make that child successful in life. To help it be all it can be, to mold it, to shape it, to make it a person that people like, they respect, they trust. And the responsibility is absolutely incredible. I can't think of anything more important than molding people. And thus, the work of mother. Today in the United States of America, we've watched as the morality, the ethic of the scriptures has, largely been ignored and just turned upside down. In her book, Judith Harris says, do parents have any important long-term effects on the development of their children. That's the question she raises in this book, The Nurture Assumption. I don't recommend you purchase it. It's a waste of $39. But it's a book that's used in universities all across our country. And truly, it's not worth the paper it's printed on. I've never read worse advice from what's supposedly a psychologist in my whole life. The subtitle of her book will give it away what it's all about. The Nurture Assumption is the name of the book. Why Children Turn Out the Way They Do, and Parents Matter Less Than You Think, and Peers Matter More. Have you ever seen a subtitle like that in your life? I mean, you don't have to read the book. All you got to do is read the cover, and you know what the contents of the book is all about. From the authors, or publishers rather, of her book, here's what they had to say. How much credit do parents deserve when their children turn out well? How much blame when they turn out badly? This electrifying book explodes some of our deepest beliefs about children and parents and gives us something radically new to put in their place. New is always better, isn't it? Something new, especially radically new. That's the world we live in today. With the eloquence and wit, Judith Harris explains why parents have little power to determine the sort of people their children become. It is what children experience outside the home, in the company of their peers, that matters most. Parents don't socialize children. Children socialize children. I had friends when I was a child. I probably remember most of them's name. I can't recall what they look like. And I have no desire to see them again. But when it comes to my mother, a person who's been gone for nearly 30 years from this world, I love her now like I've always loved her. Nothing's changed. I can see her as clear as a bell. And I can still hear her words ringing in my ears, especially when I mess up. Why is that? If children socialize children, why is the love we have for our parents indestructible? Imperfections, warts, and everything. And we still love them like we always love them. Nothing affects that. It's always constant. Harris's theory is fundamentally flawed, being established on a faulty premise. That's all it takes. It's like building your house on sand. If you build your house on sand, it doesn't matter how beautiful the house is. It doesn't matter how much the doorknobs cost. If you build your house on sand, the house is going to fall. And so it is with a theory when you write a book. Whatever your thesis may be, if it's not a solid thesis, your book is no good. And that's the case with Ms. Harris's book. It's built on a faulty premise. She said, my view is based on a consideration of what kind of mind the child is equipped with. That just tears me all to pieces to hear statements like that. The kind of mind the child is equipped with. Almost like you're talking about a car. Depends on what kind of radio the car is equipped with. Depends on what kind of tires the car is equipped with. How a psychologist can come to this conclusion just blows my mind. Well, my view is based on a consideration of what kind of mind the child is equipped with, which requires, in turn, a consideration of the evolutionary history of our species. That's it. Whatever she says from that moment forward falls apart. It's built on the evolutionary theory of our species, and there is no evolutionary theory of our species. We have not evolved from chimpanzees, despite what this liberated woman of the 21st century might think. Her theory is based in the theory of Darwinian evolution and her intense scrutiny of chimpanzees. Children aren't chimpanzees. Children are human beings. Why would you study a chimpanzee to find out a child's behavior? Well, it's because you believe that's our roots. That's where we came from. And those natural tendencies of a chimpanzee are the natural tendencies of a human being. How can you write anything of value when you build on a theory such as this? I know of no theory that exists that is more flawed than the theory of evolution. As a matter of fact, it is not even a theory. It's only a hypothesis. At best, it's a guess. A theory implies that you have done a certain amount of scientific study. You can't study origin scientifically. It can't be done. The creation happened one time, and one time only. There's never been an evolution from one species to another. This whole gambit, this bill of goods they've tried to sell us for the last 60 years won't even hold water, and yet they still teach it in high school. They still teach it in university. And time after time after time in debate, scientists cannot stand against theologians. How can that be? And why does it continue? Well, for the most part, it's because the American people don't care. We continue to vote for these liberals who are out to spill anything that is radically new, that takes away our humanity, that gets rid of God. You know, communistic, socialistic governments knew that in order to thrive, they had to get rid of God. Government has to be the end-all for people before there can be true solidarity to the emperor, the king, the premier, whatever. Socialists in our country are going to take it in the very same direction. And one of the things that has to go, well, there's several things actually, but God has got to leave our borders, and to a large degree he has. Can't talk about him in polite company anymore. And the dissolution of the home. It's not hard to see where we're going. And for years, people have been casting their votes for people who openly intended to destroy these things. Election after election, you know, it's easy. Point to Washington, that's what we're famous for. We outnumber the people in Washington. The problem is, the people that make up our populace have got their heads in the sand, and they haven't got a clue what's going on. Mama, keep your eyes open. Keep your ears open. It only takes one nut job teacher to turn your child in the wrong direction. I remember one time a man that came home from school said she was ashamed of being white. I almost fell out of my chair. Well, come to find out, there was a teacher down in Gainesboro School. I think it was a little school, actually. And she had told Amanda how evil white people are, how badly we have mistreated black people. And Amanda, she come home and said, I'm ashamed of being white. Who told you that? My teacher. She's ashamed of being white. You better keep your eyes open. You better listen. Now, there's only a few nutty teachers around, I think. I hope. God, I hope. There's only a few nutty teachers around, but they're there. And they can speak, and children can't be influenced. Miss Harris's theory will not stand. She's built her house on sand, and it has fallen apart. Psychologists all over the country are eating her book alive. And yet it continues to be used as a textbook in many universities across our country. It's fascinating, isn't it? Harris alleges that environment, virtually every influence other than parents, is responsible for the way we are. Our childhood associates are especially influential. What does that mean? It means we've got nothing to do with how our kids turn out. Sit back and chill. You can't change it anyway. Turn them loose. Let them go. Society's going to turn them into what they need to be. Parents have no effect. Boy, it sounds like a true socialist, doesn't it? Right out of the book. Right out of the book. Sounds like something Adolf Hitler might have said. The Bible and the power of parental influence for both good and bad. I've seen on the TV one time a mother and a father was having trouble with their kids, and one of them said to the other, "I wish they came with a book." Well, they come with a book, and it's called the Bible. The Bible tells us all about our kids, and it tells us how to raise our kids, how to train them, how to nurture them, how to discipline them. It covers every aspect of life. But you got to read the book before there's any value to it. But too many people, either they don't believe it or they don't care enough to read the book. I'm not sure which. But you're talking about the most important thing you'll ever do in your life. And that is raise your child. I'm an elder and a preacher. And without a doubt, the most important thing I ever did in my life was participate in raising 2 children. I wanted them to be good people. And I think they are good people. And that's what we all should want. I want all of our children to be good people. And working together, we can make that a reality. Abraham, he was a good father. God promised, he chose Abraham and promised him that through his seed all the people of the earth would be blessed. He chose him, he said, because I have known Abraham, in order that he may command his children, his household after him, that they keep the way of the Lord to do righteousness and justice, that the Lord may bring to Abraham what he has spoken to him. God chose Abraham, why? Because he was a good daddy. Yeah, he's going to raise his children the way they ought to be raised. God knew he was going to do it before he did it. And he said, that's why I chose him. He's a good father. And a good father is going to produce a good family. And Abraham, in part, did. Eli, he's a sorry daddy. Sorry I'm using all fathers because there aren't that many mothers in the scriptures. But Eli, he was a sorry daddy. He loved his boys. I mean, all of them. He loved his children. He was, I think, for the most part, a good man. He was a spiritual man. He was a judge and a priest in Israel. Very important, very influential. And all in all, he's a very good man. But he was a sorry father. And because of that, the Lord said, I'm going to cut off his family line. There won't be any more Eli's running around after I get finished with them in the very near future. Why? What caused that? Here's what the Lord said. He said his sons made themselves vile, 1 Samuel 13:13, and Eli did not restrain them. You ever go to Walmart and watch kids? Some of them are 20 years old. You ever go to Walmart and watch how a lot of kids behave? I've seen children, young children, tell their mom or daddy, shut up. Shut up. I can imagine if I told my daddy to shut up, he'd have knocked me out of that little basket in that carriage. They would tell their mom or daddy to shut up. Talk to them like they were dogs. And you say, boy, what a rotten kid. I don't know. Might be a rotten parent. My first question would be, what did they ever do to restrain them when they could? Or what were they doing now? A lot of people don't restrain children. It's hard, man. I know it's hard. It's hard for me when it comes to my grandkids. And I turn the other way a lot of times. But it's not my job. That's their job. I didn't let my kids get away with that stuff. But now, when it comes to my grandchildren, I'm a lot easier going than I used to be. But when I think it's going to threaten who they are, well, we'll get real serious then. I want them to be good people too. It's important to me. Not for my sake. It's important to me for their sake. Because I knew good people end up well. Bad people don't. And I want my children and my grandchildren to wind up good people. So when necessary, I'll even restrain them. But that's primarily their parents' job. Okay? I did my thing, now they're doing their thing. David, Israel's illustrious king. Oh, everybody knows David. Abraham, David, two most famous people in the Old Testament. Even more famous than Isaiah and Jeremiah. Everybody's heard of David, king of Israel, because he was one of the greatest kings Israel ever had. He was a great military leader. He was a great strategist. Everything he did as king, almost everything, was absolutely wonderful. But he had a flaw, and the flaw was this: he was a sorry daddy. He didn't take care of his kids. He didn't have time. He's always off fighting a war somewhere. He didn't have time to fool with his kids. You know, his kids lived in different houses because he had kids by so many different women. One or two kids, they'd live over in that palace. A couple other kids, they'd live over here in this palace. The other one lived back yonder somewhere. And he hardly ever even saw him. He was sorry, Father. Sorry, Father. And because he was, the Lord said, the sword will never depart from your house, David. What does that mean? There's always going to be grief, strife, and murder amongst your children. The reason for it, David was a sorry father, and he was a sorry husband. And because he had neglected his children, they would wind up raping, torturing, and murdering each other. Absalom actually tried to kill his daddy. Joab saved him by killing Absalom. Ahab and Jezebel, two names that are synonymous with evil. As a matter of fact, in the book of Revelation, the imperial Rome was referred to by the Lord as Jezebel, the great harlot. The name Jezebel was a name synonymous with harlotry, adultery, wickedness, evil. She was far more evil than Ahab. He was evil enough for my taste, but she outdid him tenfold because she was bad to the bone like Chucky. One of the wickedest women that's ever lived. And she had a daughter very much like her mama. Her name was Athaliah. We read about her in 2 Kings chapter 11 and verse 1. She was a chip off the old mama block, about like him. When Athaliah, the mother of Ahaziah, saw that her son was dead, she arose and destroyed all the royal heirs. You know what that means? She killed all the children of the king, including her own. Killed them all except for one who got away. He was hid by his nurse, but she killed all the rest of them. She wanted to be queen, and she was. And she was mean. She was mean, mean, mean. And you could tell, Jezebel, her daughter, turned out about like she did. Athaliah, her son, well, he pretty much turned out like his mama too. We read that he walked in all the ways of the house of Ahab. He's the chip off the old Ahab. He was a wicked man just like his grandfather was. He was evil. He was vile. He was a horrible king. He tormented his own people, much less the peoples around him. He walked in the ways of the house of Ahab, but that's not the end of his sad story. For his mother was his counselor to do wicked. Did she have any influence over this boy? Oh, yeah. She taught him how to be mean. She taught him how to be deceptive. She taught him how to steal, to rob, to murder. She was his counselor to do wicked. Whatever it takes, son. That's what we got to do if we want to be on top, and that's exactly what he did till he was put to death. What some people have learned by observation, these are just sayings that we're all familiar with. As the twig is bent, so grows the tree. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Shakespeare called parents heaven's lieutenants. I like that one. The philosopher John Locke noted, parents wonder why the streams are bitter when they themselves have poisoned the fountain. What he means by that is, parents wonder why the children turned out badly, when in the beginning they didn't stand a chance because of parents that didn't parent. And they wonder, what went wrong? Oh, there's a lot of things that can go wrong. These sayings, these observations, they didn't happen in a vacuum. These are things people discovered by observation, by watching. Like when you go to Walmart and you watch how a child behaves. And then when you see the mama, you kind of understand why. Or when you see the daddy, you kind of understand why. But then on the other hand, there are those children that are good children, well-behaved children. They speak like they got good sense. They don't run around like a bunch of wild Indians. And they can actually talk to you and have a conversation. And then you look at the parents and, well, you understand why. Okay? It's because the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Now, there are exceptions to the rule. There are always exceptions to the rule. But the rule has been noted by great philosophers throughout the ages, and I think that's pretty much undeniable. Addressing the Israelite people, Jehovah said, "Hear, O Israel, Jehovah our God is one Jehovah. You shall love Jehovah your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. And these words, which I command you this day, shall be upon your heart." These are words that every parent ought to memorize. You shall teach these words diligently unto your children. Talk of them when you are sitting in your house, when you're walking down the road, when you lie down in your bed, and when you rise up at the breakfast table. What's the point? Whenever you grab an opportunity, teach your children about God, about respect, about fatherhood, motherhood, responsibility, submission, decent behavior. Every chance you get, because when you turn around 3 times, you got to look up at them, except for Amanda. Still look down at her. It's so fast. It seems so slow when you live through it. But man, when it's over, and it seemed like it only took a heartbeat. So sad, so sad. I miss my youth. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. Again, there are exceptions to the rule. There are no guarantees. You do the best you can do, and you pray to God to help you. And then tomorrow you do the best you can do, and you pray to God to help you. That doesn't mean everything's going to turn out well. We must be realistic about this thing we call life and parenting. Hear Jehovah. Hear, O heavens, and give ear, O earth, for the Lord has spoken. I have nourished and brought up children. Like a good father, he nourished and he brought up his children. He taught them, he trained them, he disciplined them. He did everything a good father would do. I have nourished and brought up my children, and they have rebelled against me. Even the perfect father couldn't guarantee perfect results. So sometimes we do the best we can do, and things don't turn out the way we want them to turn out. That doesn't mean we failed. Children have their own will. They're of their own volition. They do what they want to do ultimately. And yes, children do have influence on other children. Matter of fact, society does. Every day when we send our children to school, they're being influenced by adults. What do those adults believe? If we found out, we probably wouldn't approve of some of them. I think we would approve of most of them, at least in Jackson County, Tennessee. I hope so. But I think I've only crossed a few in my life. Of course, that was a long time ago. But I only crossed 2 or 3 that gave me heartburn. And everything they taught my babies, I had to unteach. Because they were giving them bad information. And those were my children. Mothers, you probably won't know how important you really are until 40, 50 years down the road. But I'm 40, 50 years down the road, and trust me, you have no idea how important you are. As far as your family's concerned, you're more important than the President of these United States. Because he doesn't care about your children. But you do. You do. I hope you have a wonderful Mother's Day. Anybody that has to carry around that much responsibility deserves a wonderful Mother's Day. May God bless you. If you're not a child of God, we would encourage you to be one. Fulfill your purpose in life by walking with God, coming to know your Creator as your Father. You are to believe that Jesus, his Son, rose from the dead after being crucified for our sins. You are to repent of your sins, be immersed in water for the forgiveness of sins. As children of God, we're not perfect, but we want to be. We're not perfect, but we're trying to be. And sometimes, despite all of our efforts, we miss the mark, and we need divine forgiveness. If you want us to pray with you today, we hope you'll come